In this video, I will talk a little bit about analyzing arguments to help you better write essay number 3, which is an argumentative essay. And I have a picture of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. on this first slide because he had the art of argumentation down to perfection. In the next slide, I have a current event surrounding an argument going on regarding the use of incompatible male mosquitoes. Should they be used to control avian malaria? And specifically, I'm looking at this example about should they be used to control avian malaria on Kauai. This is a debatable topic. Some people think absolutely these incompatible male mosquitoes should be released immediately to help save endangered birds, and other people disagree. So if you're following this topic, you know that people have been debating a lot about this issue, which is a good example of a current event argument happening in Hawaii. To define an argument, we need to think about arguments as having the power to make people change their minds about a topic, or to allow them to really understand and accept the author's position as a valid one. So authors use arguments to try to convince their audience that their opinion about a topic is valid. Before we jump into talking more about the pieces of an argument, I want to preface it by saying that there are multiple ways of knowing. I'm going to talk about argumentation from a Western perspective, but that's just one approach to speaking and writing. And in this Western approach, oftentimes lived experiences and emotions are devalued, but I want to stress that lived experiences and emotions are all important pieces of argumentation and parts of writing and speaking. So looking at the Western history of argumentation, often Aristotle is credited with defining these 3 parts of an argument that you may have heard of before: ethos, logos, and pathos. When we talk about ethos, we are talking about character reference to support an argument. This is often done through the use of famous people or subject matter experts. And overall, readers are more likely to believe an argument that is supported by an expert or a celebrity. In an academic setting, however, we want to rely on subject matter experts and not celebrities to come up with our supporting evidence for our arguments. A little bit more about ethos. When a writer provides some of the following, they are trying to establish ethos. So personal experience, that is a primary source. When they mention knowing someone else who has a personal experience, that would be a secondary source. When the writer uses expert support through extensive research and up-to-date research, and through recognized authorities in the field. A little bit more about ethos. As I mentioned previously, celebrities use notoriety to convince people to accept certain opinions about topics like gun control, political candidates, and etc. Authors quote subject matter experts in articles. Subject matter experts can be anyone who is known within the subject matter community as someone who really has expertise about the subject. So we're not necessarily looking at maybe someone who's a scholar who has a PhD in a certain area or topic. That definitely does count as a type of ethos or subject matter expert, but we really have to think about the topic that we're writing about. So maybe a kumuhula, a master journeyman. These are also considered examples of subject matter experts. So if we were writing about Hawaiian culture and we wanted to find a subject matter expert, we would not want to quote someone from the cast of Hawaii Five-0. They're actors and they might be famous for being in this television show, but they certainly aren't subject matter experts about Hawaiian culture. we would want to use this first example, Dr. Pualani Kanakaole Kanahele, as a subject matter expert in the field of Hawaiian studies. For logos, this is often the area that is stressed the most in terms of importance for an academic field or an academic paper. Writers and speakers use logos in arguments by referring to specific examples that support their argument. These examples can come from statistics, studies, interviews, and so forth. So logos really supplies factual information to support an argument. Readers are more likely to believe an argument that has factual information, hopefully, and well-constructed arguments should rely on credible forms of evidence. And remember from our previous lesson that just because we are presented with a study, a statistic, and so forth, we shouldn't take that at face value. We need to take a little bit of time to verify the accuracy of that information being provided to us to the best of our ability, and look for any biases potentially that could be included in that type of information. A little bit more about logos. So when I talk about facts, this typically includes studies, direct quotes, and statistics. For example, if you quote someone directly, you're saying it is a fact that this person made this statement. Examples typically in argumentation include events or circumstances that your audience can relate to their own lives. And precedent is a specific example from the past. And then authority again goes back to ethos to include our subject matter expert references. I have two links to examples of logos that you might use if you were writing an academic paper. There is a copy of this presentation, just the presentation itself, not a video, in this week's lesson, so you can check out these links and look at these examples of logos. The last piece is pathos, and this refers to emotions. And oftentimes, authors will intentionally use language about a topic specifically designed to stir up our emotions. Because when readers become emotionally involved with a topic, they may be much more inclined to support it or not. Emotions play a very powerful role in whether or not we accept a topic. So we want to think about that, and that's another way to assess maybe how believable or not some piece of writing is, based on the use of words that stir up specific emotions in us. I have a link to a video example of pathos that you can check out in the presentation of this, or this presentation outside of the video. And for this last slide, I just really urge you to think critically about information. So thinking about the reason, purpose, assumptions, facts, consequences, and so forth about information, and recognizing that sometimes writers and speakers intentionally use logical fallacies. So these are specific ways to try to convince people to believe information, but typically used when someone doesn't really have any solid factual reasons or evidence to support a topic. So to just think critically about arguments, and when you are writing, to try to avoid logical fallacies and to really just try to present information in an honest and respectful way, even though you are trying to convince an audience to believe your opinion, you can do so in a respectful way. And that concludes this video. Thank you.